United States is nobody's ally. Qatar offered Donald Trump a refurbished presidential plane with gold toilets as a vassal, paying taxes to a colonial power, and still Donald Trump did not do anything to prevent Israel's bombardment to Doha, Qatar. As we remember, Doha is a wonderful city that recently hosted the FIFA World Cup. Qatar is a country that has excelled in building bridges between different cultures, political systems, and negotiations. A negotiation was supposed to happen between Hamas and other Middle Eastern parties interested in peace between Gaza and Israel, and the negotiation parties were killed by Israel's bombardment with probable knowledge from the United States, because the missiles had to fly through airspace of several countries, which is impossible to happen without United States authorization. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Iran deplore such renewal of Middle Eastern hostilities and war, and it is likely that Qatar will retaliate against Israel. Israel has become nuts, and obviously the United States has also become nuts. None of them deserve to remain as members of United Nations. In many opportunities, every single country of the planet, excepting the United States or Israel, agree on something, but those two countries with unlimited power to harm civilians and peaceful negotiators place us in continuous warfare. It would be useful to the vassal presidents and prime ministers and governors of Panama, Puerto Rico, Guyana, and Trinidad and Tobago to reassess if it is for the best interest of the countries, regions, or territories they represent, to continue relying on assistance from United States, which is a country that will most likely betray you at any time. Europeans know very well what betrayal from the United States looks like. Even Israel was betrayed by the United States when it withdrew its fleet from the Red Sea and ended hostilities with Yemen. Venezuela, however, has as a strategy providing very strong resistance, including drones and missiles, against any incoming aggression from the United States in Caribbean waters, so that, following the example of Yemen's Houthis, we can inflict so much damage to United States invading forces that they will be forced to withdraw out of the Caribbean. For now, Venezuela continues to receive financial assistance from China and military equipment from both China and Iran. Iranian factories of drones and rifles are already in service, and so are already provided Russian equipment. Russia's assistance might be limited not because Russia made a secret deal with Putin in Alaska, although you can never rule that out, but there have been many conversations of high-level officials between Caracas and Moscow, so it is most likely that Russia is concentrated in extinguishing the war in Ukraine. Every night, missiles and drones are trespassing Ukraine's Iron Dome, and the city of Kiev is the battleground of a lot of Ukrainian military and political casualties. It looks like it's a matter of days or perhaps weeks until Volodymyr Zelensky is forced to declare defeat. Puerto Rico is occupied by the United States. Puerto Rico should be a Caribbean country. Puerto Rico has its own flag and participates at the Olympic Games as a country. However, they still behave as a United States colony. Democracy should be encouraged into Puerto Rico as they are not allowed to choose the president of Puerto Rico. The only choice they have is a governor who, as a vassal of the United States, welcomes United States military Secretary of War, and instead of providing development opportunities for Puerto Rico, only offers military deployment, which has been adequately protested by Puerto Rican civil society, which is daily expressing protests near air bases and renewing Puerto Rico's calls for nationhood and independence. The Caribbean community needs Puerto Rico as part of our independent and sovereign nations promoting peace. However, Puerto Rico has become a giant war machine preparation stage. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth provided a funeral speech to Marines who will probably die within the next few days or weeks as they try to enter Venezuela and will be outnumbered by Venezuelan militias and army within Venezuelan ground. Those United States Marines will probably save their lives if they continue at sea. But if they enter Venezuelan land, they will be crushed. In order to accomplish regime change in Venezuela, deployment of United States forces would need to be significantly increased, and so far that has not happened yet. Panama is also a boiling point full of United States Tomahawks, and the Panamanian population remembers 1970s and 1980s United States intrusions for regime change, and they are now remembering that their trade with China might suffer. China provides economic development to many Latin American countries, and when the United States pretends to kick out China, the result is poverty for Latin America because the United States never provides the economic incentives well provided by China, which has earned China a special prize in Latin American countries' development. The Panama Canal seems to already have become part of the United States, if not in legal form, at least in administrative errands. By the same token, Georgetown in Guyana was flew over by United States military aircraft during the inauguration of illegitimate re-elected President Irfan Ali, whose conditions of electoral victory remain contested. Guyana, Puerto Rico, and Panama are already suffering the very same horror story that Venezuela so far has evaded. Puerto Rico, Guyana, and Panama are already invaded by United States military, which will probably be very difficult to kick out. Colombia is trying to kick out United States bases, and so far they remain, although with more limited capabilities. But it looks like the United States just wishes to invade the entirety of South America and the Caribbean, and Venezuela very bravely so far is resisting such a possibility. Because if Venezuela falls, the rest of South America will enter an instability stage that could last ages, with the threat of becoming a newer form of Middle Eastern conflicts. We are already seeing how in Nepal there was a regime change in the last few hours, in which the youth was used just as it happened in Venezuela a few years ago, inciting them to protest, and it all seems a retaliation from Donald Trump because of Modi and Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin renewed friendship. United States is trying to divide Asia in smaller countries such as Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, or Nepal, because the United States does not dare to fight face to face with nuclear powers such as India, Russia, or China. Fortunately, Venezuela is getting all diplomatic and military help from Iran, which will ensure that Venezuela sooner than later will become a nuclear power able to defend our petroleum industry. Venezuelan petroleum industry continues growing, and a Chinese floating oil extraction platform has just been installed in Lake Maracaibo, which will probably require military protection. And as agreements between China and Venezuela tend to be top secret, perhaps Chinese troops are already in Venezuelan ground. Iran has emphasized that everything they needed to provide to Venezuela is already within Venezuela, so that may be weaponry and troops. Venezuela is a melting pot of the world. It's always been so, and we welcome our Chinese immigration, we welcome our Iranian immigration, we welcome our Lebanese immigration, and we welcome our recent Russian and Polish tourism. Venezuela is a bridge between Western and Eastern cultures, and we are not interested in reverting to obsolete Western culture that only promotes war through democracy. Venezuelans will not tolerate a United States invasion. Venezuelans will not tolerate a new president of our country imposed by the United States. If the United States were to remove our current government, the Venezuelans would find a way, in agreement with our military, to continue our sovereignty with other people unrelated to the evil traitors who pretend to get into Venezuelan power with assistance of the United States. Venezuela needs to protect our Orinoco Belt. Interestingly, a United States petroleum company based in Texas just signed with PDVSA, Petróleos de Venezuela, an agreement to extract some petroleum from the heavy oil Orinoco Belt. It will be interesting to know how that could happen without a NOFAC license, but it seems that United States companies are following the example of Chevron and managing to circumvent United States sanctions, and as there are many small petroleum companies, they will all succeed in circumventing OFAC sanctions, which will probably be limited to majors. It looks like Repsol from Spain might abandon its gas fields in Perla Falcón state because of non-renewal of OFAC licenses. If that were to be the case, another smaller company will take over Repsol's interests in Perla gas fields. It is interesting to realize that many Venezuelans who support regime change do not even live in the country. They are exiles. They should focus on arranging their paperwork in their countries of destination so that they are not deported and they can start a new life far away from Venezuela, as they are traitors of the country. If exiles who are calling for regime change and invasion into Venezuela are to come back into the country, they should be arrested upon arrival to the airport. It is necessary that President Mulino of Panama, Governor Jennifer Gonzalez from Puerto Rico, and President Irfan Ali of Guyana, and Prime Minister Kamala from Trinidad and Tobago realize how Donald Trump has played with the Emir of Qatar, who spent so much money kissing Donald Trump's ass only to get bombarded. During all these days, Venezuelans have been worried of an bombardment into Venezuela, and bombardment occurred in Qatar, which is supposed to be United States' ally. This world system is insane. United States has no business in meddling into anywhere's affairs. United States should completely redevelop their military and sanitary drug dealings into the financial system of the United States that launders all the drug money, and their drinking culture in educational institutions, and see how they can rehabilitate all those homeless that are consuming fentanyl and other drugs in every single inner city of the United States of America. That is a domestic problem of the United States. The contribution of Venezuela to drug traffic is marginal, and none of the activities performed by hostile United States Army, Navy, and Marines are compatible with findings from the United Nations. BRICS countries had to concur on a video conference meeting, and President of Brazil, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, stressed out that peace is imperative, that tariffs should not be applied for free trade, while Gustavo Petro every day continues deploring United States plans of invasion, while offering Nicolás Maduro necessary recommendations for improving the situation of political prisoners within Venezuela. It is necessary that former presidential candidate Enrique Márquez gets out of jail. It is necessary that many political prisoners are released from jail, but in order for that to happen, we need negotiations between government, opposition, and international community. However, Donald Trump, who pretends to be his fascist government, the international community does not want to dialogue. And the fascist extremist people who claimed to have won previous elections with no proof, they also want no dialogue. they only want war. However, Venezuela counts with opposition parties, which may be small in size, but they account for a significant minority of Venezuelan population, and they actually have earned the right for being mayors, governors, and deputies at her National Assembly, city governments, and state governments. Venezuela really wants peace, but peace does not seem to be a choice. Therefore, Venezuela needs Chinese weapons, Chinese troops, Iranian weapons, Iranian troops, Russian weapons, Russian troops, as unfortunately we have already started World War III because Israel decided to kill negotiators, so the war in the Middle East will become worse. Russia's final recovery of Ukraine will be completed more harshly as Volodymyr Zelensky does not concede defeat, and Venezuela, just as during Simón Bolívar time, now has the obligation not only of defending sacred Venezuelan soil, but also help out our neighboring Caribbean and South American neighbors, Guyana, Panama, and Puerto Rico, to expel United States military occupation, which is not for the benefit of Panamanians, Puerto Ricans, or Guyanese. Venezuela needs to recover a united American continent from Mexico to Argentina and the Caribbean, excluding the United States. And that is the purpose of CELAC, Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, which should be our own sphere of influence with a territory greater than the Soviet Union ever was, and which will follow the example of the Shanghai organization that just united world titans such as India, China, Russia, Iran, Belarus, and North Korea. An alliance between the Shanghai Cooperation Group with the Pan-African Community Organization, with CELAC, Organization of Latin American and Caribbean States, will provide a formidable deterrence to obsolete United States and Europe, which will have to use their armies only for defense of their small territories, as they will be unable to conquer anyone after they get defeated in current occurrence of World War III, which we are already witnessing as we speak.